Naomi's family had always been poor. They lived in a small house with barely enough food to eat and worn-out clothes to wear. Her parents had tried everything they could to make life better, but nothing worked. Her father struggled to find work, and her mother did odd jobs, but it was never enough. Every day was a struggle to survive, and they dreamed of a way out of poverty. Naomi, their only daughter, was a beautiful young woman. She was in love with Emmanuel, a kind and hard-working young man who didn't have much. He was poor, just like Naomi's family, but he loved her deeply. They had been together for years, sharing dreams of a future where they could build a life together. But Naomi's parents never liked Emmanuel. They thought he was a waste of time, someone who couldn't lift their family out of poverty. "Love doesn't put food on the table," Naomi's mother would always say. "You need to marry someone who can give us a better life." Naomi hated those words. She loved Emmanuel and believed they could make things work together. But her parents had other plans. They wanted more, and one day their prayers seemed to be answered. It was a quiet afternoon when Mr. Martin came to visit. He was a wealthy man in his 60s, well-dressed, and spoke with confidence. Naomi had never met him before, but her parents had been talking about him for weeks. They had heard about his riches, his connections, and how he could change their lives. When Mr. Martin sat down with Naomi's parents, there was an excitement in the air. Her mother and father listened closely to every word he said, nodding eagerly. Naomi stayed silent, unsure of what was happening. Then Mr. Martin made his offer. "I'm here to ask for your daughter's hand in marriage," Mr. Martin said, his voice smooth, "but not for myself. It's for my son, Maxwell." Naomi's mother gasped, her eyes lighting up. "Your son? Oh, Mr. Martin, that is wonderful. But where is Maxwell? We would love to meet him." Mr. Martin smiled, leaning back in his chair. "Maxwell is a busy man. He's traveled overseas for work, but he trusts me. I'm here to represent him. He's looking for a good wife, and I believe Naomi is perfect for him." Naomi's heart sank. She had never met Maxwell. She didn't know anything about him, yet here they were, talking about marriage like it was a business deal. She looked at her father, hoping he would say something, but he was too blinded by the thought of wealth. Her mother smiled widely. "We are honored, Mr. Martin. This would change our lives." Naomi felt sick. She wanted to scream, to tell them that she didn't want this. But the words stuck in her throat. Her parents were poor, and this was their chance to escape. How could she say no? They had sacrificed so much for her, and now they were looking to her to make their dreams come true. After Mr. Martin left, Naomi went straight to Emmanuel. She knew she had to tell him what had happened, even though it broke her heart. Sitting under the old tree where they always met, Naomi couldn't hold back her tears. "Emmanuel, my parents, they want me to marry Mr. Martin's son. I've never even met him, but they've already agreed." Emmanuel's face turned pale. He took her hands, his voice trembling. "No, Naomi, you can't marry someone you don't know. You love me, and I love you. We can still make it work." Naomi sobbed. "I don't know what to do. My parents, they're desperate. They think this is the only way to get out of poverty." Emmanuel's grip tightened on her hands. "We'll find another way. I'll sell my land. My parents left it to me. It's all I have, but I'll do it for us. We can run away, get married, and start over somewhere else. I don't care if we're poor, as long as we're together." Naomi looked into Emmanuel's eyes, seeing the love and determination in them. He was willing to give up everything for her, but deep down she felt trapped. Her parents' words echoed in her mind. "Love doesn't put food on the table." "What about my parents?" Naomi whispered, tears falling down her cheeks. "They've suffered so much. This is their chance to have a better life. How can I take that away from them?" Emmanuel shook his head, his eyes pleading. "What about your happiness, Naomi? Do you really want to marry someone you don't know, just to please them? We can make our own life, even if it's hard." Naomi cried harder, torn between her love for Emmanuel and her duty to her parents. She didn't want to lose him, but she also couldn't bear to see her family continue to suffer. "I don't know what to do," Naomi whispered, feeling more lost than ever. Emmanuel held her close, his voice gentle but firm. "You don't have to decide right now. Just remember that I love you, and I'll always be here for you, no matter what happens." Naomi nodded, her heart aching. She wished things were different, but life had never been easy for her. Now she was faced with the hardest decision of her life. The days that followed were the hardest Naomi had ever faced. Her parents grew more excited with each passing moment, constantly discussing the new life that awaited them once Naomi married Maxwell. Her mother could hardly contain her joy, imagining the new clothes, abundant food, and a comfortable home they would finally have. Her father, though quieter, held a hopeful expression Naomi hadn't seen in years. For Naomi, every conversation about the marriage felt like a knife twisting in her heart. Sleepless nights consumed her, haunted by thoughts of Emmanuel, their shared dreams, and his willingness to sell his only inheritance, the land his parents had left him, to build a life with her. The idea of him giving up everything for her brought fresh tears to her eyes. Emmanuel had offered to run away with her, to marry with nothing but love between them, but the weight of her parents' expectations crushed her spirit. One evening, Naomi's mother pulled her aside, her face still glowing with excitement. Thoughts of what this marriage could mean for the family filled the room. The conversation revolved around how marrying into a wealthy family would save them from the hardship they had endured for so long. New opportunities, security, and a better life were all within reach. Naomi could barely listen, the pain in her chest growing heavier. Maxwell, a man she had never even met, was being painted as her savior, but her thoughts wandered back to Emmanuel. The memories of their time together, the laughter, and the plans they had made clashed with the reality of her current situation. Later that night, Naomi slipped away to meet Emmanuel under the old tree. His face was clouded with worry, eyes filled with sleepless nights of his own. Hands tightly clasped around hers, he spoke softly, asking what she had decided. Tears welled up in her eyes as she shared the pressure her parents were placing on her, how they believed marrying Maxwell was the only way to ensure a better future for their family. Emmanuel listened quietly, his expression unreadable at first. Then, with a calm yet desperate voice, he reminded Naomi of his love and commitment. There were no riches, no promises of luxury, but there was his heart. There was the life they had imagined together, even if it came with struggles. He spoke of selling the land to start anew, offering her a chance to choose love over wealth. Naomi's heart broke as she tried to explain the impossible situation she found herself in. Her parents had suffered so much, giving everything to raise her. How could she turn her back on them now? Yet the thought of leaving Emmanuel, of losing the one person who truly understood and loved her, was unbearable. As the night grew darker, Naomi felt the overwhelming weight of her choice. Emmanuel's voice was filled with hope and love, but also fear of losing her. He knelt before her, holding her face gently, pleading not to marry Maxwell, not to leave him behind. The conflict in Naomi's heart deepened, torn between the man she loved and the family that needed her. She asked for more time, her voice barely above a whisper, knowing that no matter what she chose, someone would end up hurt. Naomi's heart ached with the weight of her decision. That night, as she sat with Emmanuel under the old tree, the emotions she had been holding back came flooding out. She couldn't stop crying, the pain of knowing she might lose him forever tearing her apart. Emmanuel held her close, whispering that everything would be okay, that they would find a way, but Naomi wasn't sure. She felt like her life was no longer her own, controlled by forces beyond her reach. Through her tears, Naomi looked up at Emmanuel, her eyes filled with desperation. "I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what I'll choose, but I do know one thing. I can't let them take everything from me. I won't lose the most precious thing I have to a man I don't even know." Emmanuel stared at her, confused. "What are you talking about?" Naomi's hands trembled as she reached for his. "I want to be with you tonight. I want to give myself to you, Emmanuel. You're the only man I've ever loved. If they take me away, I want you to be the one I remember." Emmanuel pulled away, shaking his head. "Naomi, no, I can't do that. You're upset, and you're not thinking clearly. I don't want to take advantage of you like this." Naomi moved closer, her voice pleading. "I'm not asking for your permission. I'm telling you this is what I want. If I'm going to be forced into a life I don't want, then at least let me have this one thing. Let me be with the man I love." Emmanuel's heart raced, torn between his love for Naomi and his morals. He had always dreamed of a future with her, but he never wanted it to happen like this. Still, he could see the determination in her eyes, the pain she was trying to push aside. He knew how much this meant to her, how much she was giving up. Slowly, he nodded, though his heart was heavy with the decision. They lay together under the stars that night, their love stronger than the fear that hung over them. Naomi gave herself to Emmanuel, knowing it might be the last time she ever felt close to him. Though Emmanuel tried to hold back, Naomi forced him to share this moment with her, determined to give her innocence only to the man she loved. The next morning, Naomi's heart was still heavy, but she felt a sense of peace. She had given herself to the only man she had ever loved, and no matter what happened next, no one could take that away from her. Emmanuel kissed her gently, his eyes filled with sadness as they said their goodbyes. Later that day, Mr. Martin arrived to take Naomi to the city. Her parents were overjoyed, already dreaming of the wealth and status that would come with the marriage to Maxwell. Naomi's mother hugged her tightly, whispering, "You're doing the right thing, Naomi. This is for all of us." But Naomi couldn't shake the feeling that she was leaving a piece of herself behind. As she climbed into Mr. Martin's car, her thoughts lingered on Emmanuel and the life they could have had together. When they reached the city, Naomi's heart raced with uncertainty. The tall buildings and unfamiliar streets made her feel small, lost, and far from the life she once knew. As they pulled up to Mr. Martin's large house, her stomach twisted with anxiety. Everything felt cold and distant. The promise of a better life now seemed more like a cage closing in on her. Inside the house, Naomi finally gathered the courage to ask about Maxwell, the man she was supposed to marry. Her voice shook as she spoke. "Where is your son? When will I meet him?" Mr. Martin's expression hardened, but he didn't answer right away. There was something unsettling in the way he avoided her eyes. After a moment, he simply said, "You'll meet him soon." Minutes later, a nurse entered, pushing a wheelchair. In it sat a man who looked far too frail and broken to be the person Naomi had imagined. His body was twisted, his face pale and weak. He could barely move. Naomi's breath caught in her throat as she stared in disbelief. This was Maxwell, the man she was supposed to marry. Shock and confusion flooded her mind. Why hadn't Mr. Martin told her about this? She had been promised a healthy, strong man, a husband who would provide for her. But Maxwell was nothing like that. He could hardly speak, and his body showed signs of a terrible accident. Naomi felt her world crumble. With trembling hands, she turned to Mr. Martin, her voice barely a whisper. "Why didn't you tell me about him? Why didn't you say he was like this?" Mr. Martin's face remained cold, without a trace of sympathy. "It wasn't your place to ask. You are here to be his wife, not to question what you don't understand." Fear gripped Naomi's chest. She felt trapped, as though the air had suddenly been sucked from the room. Desperate, she reached into her pocket for her phone, hoping to call her parents, to plead with them to explain this nightmare. But Mr. Martin's hand shot out, yanking the phone from her grip. "You won't be needing this," he said with a sinister smile. "Your parents can't help you now." Naomi's heart sank. She was completely powerless. There was no way out. That night, as she lay in the unfamiliar bed, her body trembling with fear, tears streamed down her face. Everything she had feared had come true. She was trapped in a life she hadn't chosen, married to a man she didn't know, and now under the control of Mr. Martin. The nights became unbearable. Mr. Martin would take her to Maxwell's room, forcing her to act like a wife. Maxwell, helpless in his wheelchair, could barely communicate. But Mr. Martin was relentless. He forced Naomi into Maxwell's bed, making her sleep with him despite her tears and protests. As if that wasn't enough, Mr. Martin began to have his way with her too. He justified it with cold, heartless words. "The doctors said Maxwell will never be able to make you pregnant. I'm only doing this so you can have a child." Naomi's heart broke more each night. She cried silently, cursing her parents for selling her into this life. Every touch from Mr. Martin felt like a betrayal, a reminder of the promises her parents had made and the lies they had been told. Her innocence, her freedom, and her dreams had all been stolen from her. The weight of her situation crushed her. She hated the life she was now living. Each day felt like a punishment, each night a new nightmare. There was no escape, no way to reach out to Emmanuel, no hope left for her. She had been sold into a life of pain and misery, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. Emmanuel couldn't stop worrying. It had been days since Naomi left with Mr. Martin, and each time he tried calling her, the line was dead. Something didn't feel right, and the silence was driving him crazy. He couldn't just wait anymore. One morning, Emmanuel decided to go to Naomi's parents' house. His heart was heavy, but he needed to know the truth. When he knocked on the door, Naomi's mother opened it, her face hard and unwelcoming. He asked if Naomi was okay, telling her that he had been trying to call but couldn't get through. Her mother crossed her arms, her eyes cold. She told him that Naomi was married now and he should leave her alone. Emmanuel's heart sank. He hadn't even spoken to Naomi before she left. He just wanted to know if she was all right. But then Naomi's father came to the door. His face was stern, and he told Emmanuel that Naomi's life wasn't his business anymore. She was with Maxwell, and he needed to respect that. Emmanuel pleaded, saying he loved her and didn't care about money. He just wanted to know if she was happy. But Naomi's father told him that there was nothing he could offer her now. She was with a rich family, and they could give her everything she needed. He said that Emmanuel, like them, was poor and couldn't have provided for her anyway. Emmanuel felt his frustration growing. It wasn't about money for him. He just needed to know that Naomi was safe. But her mother dismissed his concerns, saying Naomi was living in the city now with all the wealth she could ever want. They told him to stop worrying about her and to focus on taking care of himself instead. Emmanuel's heart ached. He had been close to this family for so long, but now they were treating him like he didn't matter. He softly said he couldn't just let Naomi go. Her father's tone grew sharp, warning him that if he didn't back off, they would report him to Chief Martin, who would have him arrested and locked up. Emmanuel knew they weren't bluffing. Chief Martin was rich and powerful, capable of making people disappear. Naomi's mother stepped closer, giving Emmanuel a final warning. She told him to leave Naomi alone and to move on. Emmanuel stood there, feeling his heart break. He wanted to fight for Naomi, for their love, but he knew he couldn't win against Chief Martin's power. With no other choice, he turned and walked away, his heart heavy with sadness. As he left, Naomi's parents felt relief. To them, Emmanuel was a part of the poor life they wanted to leave behind. But for Emmanuel, Naomi was everything. And now she was gone. Even though she was no longer his, the love he had for her would stay with him forever. Naomi couldn't handle the fear any longer. She felt trapped in a place where every door was locked and every window shut. Mr. Martin had made it clear there was no escape. He kept a close watch on her, always reminding her of how powerful he was. One evening, after another night where Mr. Martin forced himself into her room, Naomi finally found the courage to speak to him. With tears in her eyes, she begged him to let her go, saying she didn't want to stay anymore. Martin's response was cold. He told her there was no way she could leave. His house was guarded, and if she tried to run, his men would shoot her on sight. He warned her that no one would question it because no one dared to stand up to him. He could make her disappear, and no one would care. Naomi felt her heart sink. She realized more than ever that she was truly trapped. His threats echoed in her mind. She was just a prisoner, stuck in a nightmare she couldn't escape from. Every night she cried herself to sleep, thinking about how her parents had sold her into this life without a second thought. She thought about Emmanuel, the love she had left behind. One day, desperate for help, Naomi decided to talk to Maxwell's mother. Mrs. Martin lived in the same house but always stayed in the background, quiet and hidden. Naomi hoped she could find some comfort or maybe even help from her. Naomi found Mrs. Martin in the kitchen, preparing a meal. The older woman's hands moved slowly, as if she was just going through the motions. Naomi hesitated for a moment, but her need for answers pushed her to speak. Mrs. Martin looked up with fear in her eyes. She quickly glanced around to make sure no one was listening. When Naomi asked her about what was happening in the house, Mrs. Martin's face grew pale. Her hands shook as she put down the knife she was using. Mrs. Martin admitted that she knew what was going on, but told Naomi there was nothing she could do. She begged Naomi not to tell Mr. Martin about their conversation, saying it would only make things worse if he found out she had spoken to her. Naomi felt hopeless. Even Maxwell's mother was powerless, living in fear of her own husband. The woman Naomi thought could help her was just as much a prisoner as she was. That night, Naomi returned to her room and cried. She couldn't understand what kind of family this was. The wife was terrified of her own husband, and the son was being used in Martin's twisted plans. Naomi felt completely alone. The only person she thought might help was too scared to do anything. 2 months passed, and Naomi found herself pregnant. Mr. Martin at first was overjoyed, thinking his plan had worked. He finally believed that Naomi would bear a child for Maxwell, despite what the doctors had told him about his son's condition. He hoped that this would secure his family's future and make all the suffering he had put Naomi through worth it. One afternoon, a doctor came to the house to check on Naomi's health. After his examination, the doctor quietly told Mr. Martin something that made his heart stop. Naomi wasn't just 2 months pregnant, as expected. The doctor revealed she was 3 months along, which meant the child couldn't possibly be Maxwell's. Mr. Martin was furious. How could this be possible? Naomi had only been in his house for 2 months, and Maxwell could never father a child after the accident. He kept his rage hidden until the doctor left, but as soon as the door closed behind him, Mr. Martin stormed into Naomi's room. His voice shook the walls as he demanded an explanation, accusing her of betrayal. Naomi trembled in fear, knowing that the truth would only lead to more pain. But she kept silent, hoping he would calm down. Instead, Mr. Martin called in his men, coldly ordering them to beat the truth out of her. They grabbed Naomi, their fists striking her over and over again as she cried out in agony. Her body shook with every blow, but they didn't stop until she finally broke. Through sobs and gasps for breath, Naomi confessed that she was carrying Emmanuel's child, her boyfriend from before she was forced into this life. She told them she had never wanted to marry Maxwell, that her heart had always belonged to Emmanuel. The pregnancy wasn't part of some plan to deceive them, it was simply the result of the love she had once shared with him. Mr. Martin's face turned a deep shade of red. His eyes burned with rage. He felt humiliated, betrayed, and furious that Naomi had dared to carry another man's child in his house. He grabbed the nearest object and threw it across the room in a fit of anger. Without thinking twice, he picked up his phone and called Naomi's parents. His voice was cold and filled with venom as he spoke. Martin told them about Naomi's pregnancy and made it clear that he would no longer send the monthly allowance they had been receiving unless they found a solution. He hung up before they could respond, leaving Naomi's father in shock. Naomi's father was furious. To him, this was not just a failure, but an insult to the plan he had agreed to with Mr. Martin. Without that money, their hopes of escaping poverty were shattered. The shame of their daughter's actions burned deep inside him. He called together some young men from the community and sent them to find Emmanuel. They didn't waste any time. The group found Emmanuel near his home, unaware of what had unfolded. Without warning, they attacked him, kicking and punching him to the ground. He tried to fight back, but the numbers were too many. Blow after blow rained down on him until he could barely move. The pain coursed through his body as the anger of Naomi's father and the humiliation of the situation was taken out on him. As the young men beat him, they cursed Emmanuel for ruining Naomi's family's hopes. They told him that because of him, Naomi had brought shame to her parents, and now their future was uncertain. Emmanuel could barely speak, but in his heart, he had no regrets about loving Naomi. Even through the pain, he would have done it all again, because his love for her had been real, and no beating could take that away. After the brutal attack, Emmanuel was left on the ground, battered and bleeding. The young men left him there, feeling satisfied that they had done what was necessary to restore some honor to Naomi's family. But as Emmanuel lay there, barely able to move, he knew that the real battle was far from over. Naomi, meanwhile, remained trapped in Mr. Martin's house, her body aching from the beating she had endured. She felt a deep sense of guilt for what had happened to Emmanuel and hated the fact that her parents had chosen wealth over her happiness. Naomi's father, still seething with rage, picked up the phone and called Mr. Martin. He couldn't bear the thought that all the dreams he had for his family were slipping away because of his daughter's mistake. The shame weighed heavily on him, and he needed to find a way to make things right. When Mr. Martin answered, Naomi's father wasted no time. He told Martin that the best thing to do was to get rid of the pregnancy. There was no way he could allow a child from a poor boy like Emmanuel to disgrace their family even further. Mr. Martin, still angry but seeing an opportunity to maintain control, agreed. His voice was cold and unforgiving. He told Naomi's father that he was lucky he was willing to handle it. Better, this pregnancy is an embarrassment. But listen, I won't be giving you your monthly allowance for the next 3 months. That's the punishment you and your family will face for allowing your stupid daughter to get pregnant by a poor boy. You should have taught her better. Naomi's father felt his stomach drop. The thought of losing 3 months' worth of allowance from Mr. Martin was devastating. That money was the lifeline that kept his family afloat, the key to escaping the poverty they had always known. But he had no choice. He couldn't argue with Martin, not after what had happened. "Thank you, Chief Martin," he said reluctantly, "but remember, this is my daughter's mistake. It has nothing to do with us." Martin's laugh on the other end of the line was short and cruel. "You are the one responsible for her. This is the punishment I'm giving you. Take it or leave it." After the call ended, Naomi's father stood in silence for a moment, trying to process the situation. His anger had only deepened. He stormed into the house, his eyes wild with fury. The target of his rage became Naomi's mother, who was quietly sitting in the corner of the room. "This is all your fault," he shouted, his voice filled with venom. "You gave birth to a dog for a daughter, a stupid, useless child who can't even marry into wealth properly. Look at what you've done to this family. We had everything planned out, and now, because of your daughter, we're going to lose everything." Naomi's mother looked up, tears filling her eyes, but she stayed silent. She knew that nothing she said would calm him down. She had watched their daughter grow up with hope and dreams, but those hopes had been crushed the moment she was forced into this terrible situation. Naomi's father had never cared about what was best for their daughter, only what would benefit him. "You think this is the life I wanted?" he continued, his voice growing louder. "I'm stuck in this house with a worthless daughter and a wife who doesn't even know how to raise her properly. And now we've lost 3 months of allowance because of her foolishness. What are we going to do? How are we going to survive?" Naomi's mother's heart ached as she listened to his words. She knew he would never understand the pain Naomi was going through, just as he never understood the sacrifices she had made for the family. Every insult cut her deeper, but she refused to let him see how much it hurt. She had learned long ago that there was no point in fighting back. Naomi's father stormed out of the room, leaving her alone with her thoughts. She wondered where it had all gone wrong. Was it when they agreed to marry Naomi off to a wealthy family despite her love for Emmanuel? Or had they doomed themselves long before when they placed their hopes in wealth instead of the happiness of their child? Meanwhile, Naomi was in her room at Mr. Martin's house, unaware of the conversation that had taken place between her father and Martin. She felt trapped in a never-ending nightmare, her body still aching from the beatings and her heart heavy with despair. She knew that her pregnancy was a curse in the eyes of both her family and Mr. Martin, but to her it was a reminder of the love she had shared with Emmanuel, the only bright moment in the darkness surrounding her. Mr. Martin wasted no time in confronting Naomi about the pregnancy. He approached her with a cold, calculated tone, making it clear that she had no say in the matter. He told her it was time to get rid of the baby, explaining that keeping the child would bring shame to both their families. Naomi, however, couldn't bear the thought of losing the child. This was Emmanuel's baby, a symbol of the love she had once believed in. With tears in her eyes, she refused, begging Mr. Martin to reconsider. But Martin wasn't moved by her tears. His expression hardened as he laid down the consequences. If Naomi didn't agree to terminate the pregnancy, her parents would be forced to return all the money he had given them since the arrangement began. Every penny that had been sent to lift her family from poverty would have to be repaid. He reminded her that her parents had pinned all their hopes on her marriage to Maxwell. They had sacrificed everything, and now it was her turn to make sacrifices. Naomi felt her heart sink. She knew her parents had depended on that money. Without it, they would fall back into poverty, perhaps even worse than before. She was trapped, just as she had always been, with no way out. With a broken spirit and tears streaming down her face, she finally agreed to Martin's demand. She had no choice. The doctor came to the house, and Naomi was given pills to end the pregnancy. She felt numb, like a part of her soul had been taken away along with the child. A week passed, and Naomi's body began to heal, but her heart never would. Every day was a reminder of what she had lost. the love she had with Emmanuel, the child they had created, and the life she had once dreamed of. However, things grew worse. Each night Martin continued to force himself on Naomi. It didn't matter that she begged him to stop. Martin had long ago decided that Naomi was his to control, and he made sure she knew it. He would come to her room every night, invading her space, her body, and her mind. Naomi couldn't escape, no matter how much she pleaded or prayed. Each day felt darker than the one before. Naomi found herself wishing for an end to the torment, begging God to take her life and free her from the misery that had become her reality. She couldn't understand why this was happening to her. What had she done to deserve such a cruel fate? Her parents had sold her into a life of wealth, thinking it would save them, but instead it had trapped her in a nightmare. Martin's house was a prison, one she would never escape from. Maxwell's mother, who was just as much a prisoner as Naomi, had nothing to offer but silent sympathy. And Maxwell himself was no longer a part of her life in any meaningful way. Naomi was completely alone. Every night as Martin came into her room, Naomi cried silently into her pillow, praying that it would be the last time. She wished for death, for a release from the endless pain and humiliation. But death never came, the days dragged on, and the life she once knew seemed like a distant memory, lost forever to the nightmare that Martin had created for her. Naomi couldn't bear the weight of it all. She thought of Emmanuel, the man she had once loved, and the future they had dreamed of together. That future was gone now, replaced by a never-ending cycle of fear and torment. She wondered if Emmanuel even thought of her anymore. Did he know the hell she was living through? Did he care? One afternoon, when Mr. Martin was not at home, Naomi felt a spark of courage to speak with Mrs. Martin again. She couldn't understand how anyone could stay with a man as cruel as Mr. Martin. "Why do you stay with him?" Naomi asked, filled with a mix of sadness and confusion. "You deserve better than this life." Mrs. Martin looked around carefully, making sure no one was listening. She took a deep breath, preparing to share her story. "I was an orphan," she began. "I lived on the streets, struggling to survive. I worked every day, just trying to find food and shelter. One day Mr. Martin found me. He seemed like a savior, offering me a way out of that life." Naomi listened closely, her heart heavy with compassion. "But did you know what he was like?" Mrs. Martin shook her head. "I didn't know. At first he was kind, but once we got married everything changed. I wasn't allowed to go out. I couldn't even have a phone. I thought he was protecting me, but really he was just controlling me." Naomi's heart sank even lower. She had no idea Mrs. Martin was living in such a cage. "But what about Maxwell?" Naomi asked, concerned about the young man who seemed so distant and broken. "He doesn't seem happy." Mrs. Martin's face grew darker. "Maxwell was only 15 when it happened. Mr. Martin and I had a terrible fight one day, and Maxwell tried to help. In his anger, Mr. Martin pushed him off the balcony." Naomi gasped, horrified. "He pushed his own son." "Yes," Mrs. Martin whispered, tears in her eyes. "Maxwell fell but was lucky to survive. The doctors said he would never be able to work again and that he wouldn't be the same. Mr. Martin threatened us both, saying we could never tell anyone what happened. He said if we did, he would kill us." Naomi felt a chill run down her spine. She couldn't believe the depths of Mr. Martin's cruelty. "This is unbelievable," she said softly. "How can you live with someone like that?" Mrs. Martin wiped her tears. "I have no choice. If I try to leave, he will make me pay. I can't risk Maxwell's life. He needs me, and I can't let anything happen to him." Naomi felt a deep wave of empathy wash over her. Here was another woman trapped in a nightmare, just like her. "You shouldn't have to live like this. You and Maxwell deserve better. We have to find a way to stop him," Naomi insisted. Mrs. Martin shook her head, looking defeated. "What can we do? He has all the power. We're just prisoners in his house. Please don't mention this to my husband. If he finds out I've spoken to you, it will only make things worse for both of us." Naomi nodded, understanding the danger of their shared secret. She returned to her room, her heart heavy yet filled with a spark of determination. The revelation of Mr. Martin's true nature opened her eyes to the horrors surrounding her, but it also ignited a fire within her. She could not allow this wickedness to continue. If Mr. Martin could treat his own family with such cruelty, what would he do to her? Naomi felt a fierce determination building inside her. She had to protect Mrs. Martin and Maxwell, even if it meant risking everything. As days turned into weeks, Naomi plotted her escape. She spent sleepless nights thinking of ways to gather proof against Mr. Martin, ways to expose him for the monster he truly was. Meanwhile, back in the village, Naomi's parents began to feel the weight of their choices. They had sacrificed their daughter's happiness for their own selfish interests, and now it felt like a heavy burden on their hearts. Every night Naomi's father lay awake, thinking about the life they had forced on her and the pain it caused. What hurt him most was the thought of their first unborn grandchild, lost because of their greed. They had never truly considered how their actions would affect Naomi's future. Naomi's mother also spent her nights crying silently, tears soaking her pillow as she thought of her daughter. She replayed the memories of her laughter and joy before everything changed. The guilt gnawed at her heart, and she felt powerless to fix what had gone so wrong. "What have we done?" she would whisper to herself in the dark, wishing for a way to turn back time. One day, Naomi's father made a decision. He couldn't live with the guilt anymore. He knew he had to apologize to Emmanuel, the young man they had wronged so badly. With a heavy heart, he found Emmanuel and approached him. "I'm sorry for everything. I was wrong to think only of myself and our family's wealth. Naomi deserves to be happy, and I see that now. Can you forgive me?" Emmanuel looked at him surprised. He had never expected an apology from Naomi's father. "I forgive you," he replied slowly. "I know you were trying to protect your family, but Naomi is not a pawn in a game. She is a person with dreams and feelings." The two men shook hands, and in that moment something shifted. They both knew they had a long way to go, but this was the first step toward healing. Now they had to think of a way to bring Naomi back from Martin's house. Days later, Naomi's father decided it was time to confront Mr. Martin about his daughter. He felt a mix of fear and determination as he dialed the number. When Mr. Martin answered, Naomi's father spoke clearly, trying to keep his emotions in check. "I'm willing to pay you back for everything you've spent on Naomi. Just let her go. She deserves to be free." Mr. Martin's laughter echoed through the phone. "It's too late for that. Naomi is now my wife. I've claimed her, and I won't let you take her back. At my age, I need a young woman to satisfy me. What do you think I am, a fool?" Naomi's father felt a surge of anger. "You can't just take her like that. She's my daughter, not your property. You're a monster for treating her this way." Mr. Martin's tone turned icy. "Watch your words, or you'll regret them. You don't want to see how far my patience stretches. If you dare to challenge me, I will silence your entire family. I have the power to make you disappear without a trace." Naomi's father gritted his teeth. "Who do you think you are? You're nothing but a poor excuse for a man hiding behind your money and power. You forced my daughter into this life because you're too weak to find love on your own." Martin laughed deeply, a sound that sent shivers down Naomi's father's spine. "Weak? No, my friend, I'm not weak. I'm in control. Unlike you, who sold your daughter for a few coins. You're a useless poor excuse for a father, and you know it. You made this choice. You think you can just buy her back and pretend nothing happened. Think again." The words struck hard, making Naomi's father feel small and powerless. "I was wrong. I see that now, but you can't keep her like this. She's not happy, and deep down, you know it." Martin scoffed. "Happiness? Don't make me laugh. My happiness is what matters, and Naomi will learn to be what I need her to be. She'll come to love it here, under my care. You think she's unhappy? No, she'll realize how much better her life is with me. You don't have the slightest clue about power, do you?" Each word dripped with condescension, pushing Naomi's father closer to the edge. "I won't let you keep her. I'll gather the villagers, and we'll come for her. You can't keep treating her like this." Martin's voice dropped, chillingly calm. "You'd better think twice about that. Those villagers are nothing but sheep, and I am the wolf. If they come for me, they will regret it. I will make sure they suffer for your foolishness. You don't want to provoke me. I have eyes everywhere, and I will not hesitate to unleash my wrath." Silence fell on the line, heavy with tension. Naomi's father felt defeated, his heart pounding in his chest. "Just give me my daughter back," he pleaded, desperation creeping into his voice. Martin's response was cold. "You're in no position to make demands. It's time you understood your place. Naomi is mine now, and I intend to keep her. You think I'll let you ruin everything I've built? Number, you should have thought about that before you made your foolish decisions." With that, the call ended, leaving Naomi's father feeling lost. He dropped the phone onto the table, his hands shaking. How could he fight against someone like Mr. Martin? He took a deep breath, trying to think clearly. Naomi was trapped in a nightmare, and he felt responsible for putting her there. The regret weighed heavily on his heart. They had sacrificed her happiness for their own desires. Emmanuel felt lost as he sat on his farm, overwhelmed by sadness. Since Naomi had been taken by Mr. Martin, his heart felt heavy. To keep himself busy, he decided to plant yams, hoping the hard work would ease his troubled mind. As he dug into the earth, his shovel struck something unusual. A thick black liquid oozed from the ground, catching his attention. He didn't know what it was, so he hurried to tell Naomi's father. When he arrived at Naomi's father's house, he explained what he had discovered. The old man looked at the liquid and his eyes widened. "I think it's crude oil," he said, excitement creeping into his voice. They quickly called in an expert from the city to confirm their suspicions. The expert arrived the next day, and after examining the liquid, he declared it was indeed crude oil. "You've hit the jackpot," he exclaimed. "You can sell this for a lot of money." Emmanuel couldn't believe his luck. With this unexpected fortune, he sold the rights to the oil on his land and moved to the city, where he bought a beautiful new house. Life seemed to improve for Emmanuel, but in the back of his mind, he couldn't forget about Naomi. He felt a strong urge to help her escape from Mr. Martin's grasp. With his newfound courage, he called Mr. Martin, warning him to leave Naomi alone. "You have no right to treat her like this," he said firmly. Mr. Martin's laughter echoed through the phone. "You think you can threaten me? You're just a poor boy with some money now. I control everything, even the police. If you try anything against me, you will regret it." Naomi, who had been nearby, overheard the conversation and felt a wave of despair wash over her. She realized that if she didn't act soon, she would never be free. Determined to change her fate, she devised a risky plan. Naomi went to the kitchen and grabbed a sharp knife. She decided to play a dangerous game. She pretended to have fallen in love with Mr. Martin, hoping to gain his trust. When Mr. Martin heard her confession, he ordered his men to leave the room, thinking he was safe with her. As soon as they were gone, Naomi's heart raced. This was her chance. She lunged at Mr. Martin, stabbing him several times. The shock on his face was the last thing she saw as he collapsed to the ground, lifeless. Panicking, Naomi quickly grabbed Mr. Martin's phone and called the police. They arrived within minutes and arrested her, charging her with murder. As she was taken away, her heart ached for Emmanuel and her parents, who would be devastated by the news. News of Naomi's arrest spread quickly. Emmanuel and her parents were heartbroken, unsure of what to do. They felt guilty for not being able to protect her, trapped in their own worries. The village buzzed with gossip, and many believed Naomi had done what she had to do to escape a terrible fate. On the day of the court hearing, Emmanuel sat in the back of the courtroom, his heart heavy. He felt both angry and sad. He knew Naomi had acted out of desperation, but he also felt the weight of the consequences of her actions. When it was time for testimony, Mrs. Martin stepped forward. She looked weary but determined. "I want to tell the truth about my husband," she said. "He was cruel to me and our son. He abused us both, and I couldn't protect my son from him. Naomi was a victim of his cruelty, just like we were. She did what she had to do to survive." Her words echoed through the courtroom, touching the hearts of those present. The judge listened carefully, weighing her testimony against the charges. It was clear that Naomi had acted out of desperation, and there was a feeling of sympathy in the room. After a long deliberation, the judge finally made a decision. "Naomi," he began, "I understand the circumstances that led to your actions. You will serve 3 months in jail, but considering the situation and the testimonies presented, I hope you can find peace and healing." Emmanuel, now a wealthy man, quickly arranged for Naomi's release. Just a week later, she walked out of the prison gates, feeling a mix of relief and disbelief. The weight of her past still lingered, but she was determined to rebuild her life, now with Emmanuel by her side. Mrs. Martin approached Naomi with tears in her eyes. "Thank you for saving me and my son," she said. "Because of you, we can finally begin to heal. You showed great courage, and I will always be grateful." Naomi felt a warmth in her heart. It was comforting to know that her actions had made a difference. She smiled, knowing she had helped someone else escape the darkness. A few weeks later, Emmanuel wanted to do something special for Naomi's parents. He bought them a lovely house in the city, a place where they could live comfortably and be close to Naomi. When they moved in, their faces lit up with joy. They thanked Emmanuel for his kindness, feeling grateful for this new beginning. As time passed, Naomi and Emmanuel's love grew stronger. After 2 months, they decided to get married. The ceremony was small, but filled with happiness. Friends and family gathered to celebrate their love. Naomi wore a beautiful white dress, and Emmanuel looked handsome in his suit. They exchanged vows, promising to support and care for each other for the rest of their lives. Their hearts were filled with hope for the future. After the ceremony, they celebrated with laughter, dancing, and delicious food. Naomi and Emmanuel moved into another new house, where they built a happy life together. They shared their dreams and supported each other through thick and thin. Naomi found joy in every moment, grateful for the love and happiness that surrounded her. They lived happily ever after, surrounded by friends and family, enjoying their new life together. The past was behind them, and a bright future lay ahead. Dear viewers, what lessons did you take away from this dramatic tale? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed the story, give us a thumbs up, share it with friends, and hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss out on our latest updates. Thanks for watching and stay blessed.